This is Soundside. I'm Libby Dankman. School starts up this week for some districts in our region. Others started last week before Labor Day. When did they start that? And for some students, gym class may include a surprising throwback, the presidential fitness test. President Trump reestablished the program over the summer. It had been quietly phased out by President Obama in 2013. And people are split over the value and impact of this test. Teachers and fitness experts alike have criticized it, suggesting the test is not effective in helping students develop healthier lifestyles. And at its worst, some argue the test encourages bullying or anxiety over body image. We wanted to talk with an actual physical education teacher, not a gym teacher, physical education teacher, about the return of the presidential fitness test. So we called up Teri Garrett, a PE teacher at Lindbergh High School in Renton. She has over 30 years of experience teaching PE around the Puget Sound. Teri, thank you very much for being here. Welcome.
Thanks for having me.
And really quick, Teri, just first off, we connected with you through the Society of Health and Physical Educators, SHAPE Washington. You are the president-elect of the local chapter of that national organization, which supports health and PE teachers around the country. And just really quick, I wanted to get some clarity. Why do you say PE teacher and not gym teacher? Very specifically, why is that important?
Gym is a space. Gym is a location in a school. It is not what I teach. I teach physical education. I have a master's degree. I have standards and curriculum, just like any other teacher. I teach physical education, and that physical education is an umbrella of many things. We teach 10 different classes here at Lindbergh High School, everything from swimming to yoga to dance class. So we just offer a whole host of things, and those all fall under physical education. Gym is the place in which I do it at.
What was your first impression on the announcement that President Trump was bringing back the presidential fitness test?
I think for me, I know that when we test a lot of different things for students, we test math scores, we test English scores. And in a lot of those, if a student is doing poorly, we give them some remedial support. So I kind of felt like, well, first of all, I as a professional don't need a test to know if a student is physically fit or not. I can tell during a warm-up tag game. I can tell during doing a circuit where students' strengths and weaknesses may lie. I don't necessarily have to have a mile or a push-up test or a pull-up test to be able to judge that. And then we know that students are at risk right now. We know that, not just our students, but our society is at risk for moving their body. So part of me was also like, if we're bringing it back, what does that mean for students that aren't meeting the standards? Are we giving them additional PE classes? Is there supports outside of school that we have that we can help raise those scores? Because that's what we do for other content areas. And then at the time when he said he's bringing it back, we were supposed to have guidelines by September, and we are into September, and nothing has come down about those guidelines yet. So when I first heard it, I think a lot of us were kind of joking, like, why and what are some of the logistics? So kind of wait and see.
So you haven't heard specifically what the new way to conduct the test or what the expectation is, for example, for how fast somebody will be able to run a mile or how many pull-ups they can do. Like, there's been no details about that. Will you have to, for sure, conduct the presidential fitness test this year? Do you know?
I have no idea. And when we think about things like running the mile or doing pull-ups, has a kid, at what stage of puberty are they at? There's so many things that come into play to just say every kid who's 14 should be able to run a mile like this. Some schools, kids get PE on a trimester. Like, I'm on a trimester, so I only see students for 12 weeks. So I'm not going to see a lot of gain in 12 weeks from running a mile from the beginning to the end. Their ability to run the mile, how much can I teach that or support that? I know when I used to do it, I would have students who would come out and run the mile on day one in 20 minutes, even though they could do an 8-minute mile. And at the end of the trimester, they would run it in 12 and say, look, I improved, I get an A. Right?
Are you telling me, wait a second, Teri, are you telling me that students figured out how to game that system pretty quickly, some of them?
Yeah. So if we're, people say, well, we can grade on improvement. Can we really grade on improvement? So there's just so many things that just kind of, when it was announced, there's just so many things behind the scenes that just kind of snowballed, right? And I'm not sure that it was fully thought out when he said, let's bring it back to make our kids fit.
Yeah.
There's lots of things that we could do to make our kids fit, but I'm not sure that doing a presidential fitness test is the crux of it.
So it was phased out in 2013, but you've had experience administering it before then. What are your memories of giving the test and its impact on the kids that you were teaching? I mean, what do you think they got out of it, and what did you observe?
So, yes, I have done it 30 years ago. 30 years ago, I ran a completely different type of a PE program than I currently do. I can remember it seemed very disjointed. Like if you are in a swimming class, how is running the mile show you what you're learning in swimming class? It seems very, disjointed in that sense. It can be delivered, when delivering it, it can be delivered in a very obtrusive way. Like all 35 students sit down and watch the one person doing their pull-ups. So now that, or can we have 5 people doing pull-ups at a time, and the class is working on an academic assignment, so they're being kept busy. So, or the kids funnel behind the bleachers and do something privately with the teacher. So I think that regardless of the test itself, there is always an appropriate practice in how that test is delivered.
Yeah, I remember it in the 90s when I was taking the presidential fitness test as being pretty loosey-goosey, self-reported kind of a thing. And I don't know if my PE teacher was following protocol, but, it was like everybody was kind of chaotically running around and doing the different circuits, parts of the test, and then they would write down their results on a sheet. And so nobody was really checking, I think that there was, though, a lot of like sitting and watching the few kids who could do a lot of pull-ups and being impressed. That was something that I recall from the presidential fitness test. We did hear from listeners on this, and there, some people had good memories, some people had bad memories. We heard from Ira from Tacoma, who said he graduated from high school in 2011. And Ira had mixed feelings about the test. He was okay with it personally, but he did question how effective the test was because he said he noticed how other students responded. Here's Ira.
I've always felt like other kids, I could feel that they weren't really happy with it. Everybody was kind of uncomfortable outside of what was kind of like the tryhards of the gym.
That made me laugh, Ira's comment about tryhards. And, a lot of the reporting that's come with this has come with anecdotes of people, for example, a reader of the Washington Post named Carol, who said that the test really scarred her for years, that she was humiliated by the test and having to take this in front of other kids. Did you ever notice people being humiliated or feeling like they really struggled with the way the test made them feel?
Personally, when I used to have to run the mile every Friday in middle school in 10 minutes, I still vividly remember trying my hardest and never getting that 10-minute mark, and watching students who had much greater physical ability than me always get that 10-minute and were able to walk it. And still, and so, yes, I think it can be very scarring. But if my role as a physical educator is to excite children and bring a lot of opportunities of moving their body, doing something like the presidential fitness test is one way to tone people out from wanting to move their body. And
you think it disincentivizes the or makes movement less fun?
Yes, I think if you know that, it's Wednesday, and every Wednesday we are going to do our push-ups and our pull-ups, why do I want to go to physical education class on a Wednesday when on Tuesday I got to do pickleball, or on Thursday we're going to go learn how to golf? And it just seems very disjointed.
There is a problem, though, that's undeniable, right? That American kids are less active, and there's an obesity crisis, and I think everybody's kind of grasping for what's the answer. And this idea that maybe you can bring back a standard that will help push people to achieve, it's kind of a comforting idea.
We do. We have a number of, we are definitely at risk with obesity and so many other things. But I think it goes broader than just giving a test. Again, it's, if I don't pass that test, is there going to be funding for additional PE classes for me? Is there going to be logistics down in Olympia? Right now, students to graduate from high school need 1.5 credits to graduate with PE, but many school districts waive that. It can be waived for a whole host of reasons. We're supposed to offer students through K through 8 150 minutes of physical education a week, but where's the funding for that? So that's one piece. I have students that leave my school and go home whose parents don't want them to leave the home to go for a walk or to go play basketball at the nearest park. So I think we have communities that aren't safe for kids to go move their bodies. We don't have enough parks. We don't have enough coaches to do sports and activities. So I think it's not just running the presidential fitness test is going to change. I think there's so many pieces involved with getting our students moving.
And it sounds like what you're saying is there are investments that can help with that. It's just not a test. I mean, things like parks, things like after-school programs, or more funding for more PE teachers and people who can actually help inspire that in kids.
Exactly. And you're not going to necessarily find that by running the mile.
So I'm hearing you kind of skeptical of the effects of the presidential fitness test, both like how it's going to be implemented and then also what it's going to mean for students and their activity levels. What is the recommended way to introduce physical activity and teach kids these days when it comes to PE class? I mean, what kinds of things are you expected to teach and to get kids to understand in PE?
So in physical education, if you go to Shape America, we have national standards, we have state standards, and those standards fall into different categories. So I have movement patterns, so I'm going to be teaching movement patterns, and it can be, at the elementary school, it may be things like an overhand throw. At the high school level, it may be specific to recreational sports or to outdoor sports or to team sports. So it's fairly broad, but a lot of what we are teaching now too is the academic piece. What are the benefits of exercise? How do those benefits or the reasons to exercise change over a lifetime? An 18-year-old has a different reason to exercise than, myself, who is much older. What are the reasons? What are the muscles? What are the biomechanical principles behind movement? So it's just not that you can run and catch and do that, but it's kind of building a foundation of how to exercise for the rest of your life.
Let's kind of zoom out and talk more generally about physical education and how it can work and what it can do in a kid's life, and maybe some of the ways in which we need to improve it. We got a message from Carter in Renton. She had a really negative experience with PE class. Carter said she was actually athletic and enjoyed solo sports like skiing, but the team sports were really challenging for her. Here's Carter.
Gym class was nothing more than torture and humiliation, and it was about the popular kids torturing the unpopular kids. And the gym teachers were so horrible that they would have the popular kids pick out the teams, and you'd be sitting there on the bench waiting to be picked last, or saying, oh my God, please don't make me last, please don't make me last. And then when they'd have to pick you because you're the last one, they'd be like, oh good, we don't want her.
What do you think the biggest ways that PE class has changed and the philosophy around physical education has changed over the past 3 decades from your experience, Teri?
It makes me cringe when I hear stories like that, and it kind of breaks my heart. So I agree. PE has changed. So like right now, we offer in my building 10 different PE classes. Students, when they come in as a ninth grader, they take a very broad PE class that has a little sampling of everything. So then moving forward, students get to self-select what PE class they want to be in. Do they want to be in a swimming class? Do they want to be in a weightlifting class? Do they want to do yoga? Do they want to fitness walk? Like we have a team sports class, which is, teams of 4 or 5. And then we have an individual rec sports class, which are your singles and your duals. So those would be like golf and tennis and badminton, spike ball. We also offer so many different, PE should be beyond basketball, soccer, flag football. I mean, we offer shoot ball and discus, and there's so many things that we can be teaching students. And then when they get to self-select, we're hoping that's already given them a little bit more buy-in and a little bit more motivation. But things like a team sports class, if you look under Shape America, we have what's called best practices. And best practices is never to allow students to pick teams. In my team sports classes, I choose teams for the week, and they're posted. I mix them up. There's never a good team or a bad team. Everyone's working together. I don't reward winning and losing. I reward good sportsmanship, cooperation. So really focusing on some of those values. And when I hear people say that, you were sitting on the bench as you were picked by peers, I would say is very outdated practice. And then the other thing, I think one thing that has changed, this is our first full week of school. So we spend a lot of time within our classes getting to know each other, building capacity, learning how to cooperate, so that before I can ask students to do something that they're uncomfortable doing in a PE class, maybe it's a yoga pose, maybe it's throwing a football for the first time, whatever it is, we have to feel comfortable being able to risk failure and not being able to do it. So building that capacity within that class so we feel like we are a cohesive unit moving forward as a group.
Mm. Yeah, I hear you saying you have to be able to take risks and try, and sometimes you'll fail, but you have to find a way to not make that scary and not make that humiliating in order to encourage kids, not just in sports, but in all kinds of avenues of life to still tackle those challenges. Yeah.
And learning is about failure, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that is what learning is. And whether it be my PE class or a math class, we have to be able to feel safe enough to raise your hand and give the incorrect answer so that you know how to do it correctly the next time. And the same thing in physical education. I need to create an environment where students are willing to risk not doing it correctly the first time or the second or the 20th, but feeling safe enough to continue to practice so someday they will get it.
Is there any risk, and now I'm kind of hopping over to different topics here, but is there any risk, Teri, in when we are trying to make sure that everybody's having a safe time, trying new things in physical education class and making sure that they're not feeling bad about themselves, that you maybe don't celebrate the people whose strengths happen to be PE? Do you know what I mean? If you are a really good athlete and maybe you look forward all day to being able to get out there and play whatever sport's going on in PE, but maybe you're not celebrated for the wins, you're only celebrating for trying hard. I can kind of hear somebody listening to this and being like, oh, we have started giving out participation medals to everybody, and that isn't honoring, the kids who maybe have really strong aptitudes for certain things. Do you know what I'm asking?
Yeah, 100%. And I will say, so in the same sense, like in a math class, right? There are kids in a math class who greatly excel. Do we reward them for their accelerating, or do we, encourage them to go into an AP course where then maybe they are challenged more? So same thing with, if I have a student who is phenomenal at golf, right? So we're doing a golf unit or we're doing a tennis unit and they're just phenomenal within my PE class, I'm going to encourage them to go out for those specific sports, because we do have an outlet built in education for those athletes to get those accolades, to get those successes, to feel like they're really competing on that level that should be their level. But within a classroom, I think you need to, have a different clientele in a classroom as opposed to the cross country team.
Yeah.
Or the soccer team. So I still think that we have those outlets, and a high quality PE teacher is going to encourage, like, wow, that kid was awesome during that unit. I wonder if they would like to delve into it more. How can I pair them with a local lacrosse team or a local rugby team or whatever our unit is? We can encourage that and move them on without making others feel bad.
I've really enjoyed this conversation, Teri. I think that it is a really important kind of avenue of education that maybe not everybody thinks about all the time. So as much as I kind of question what the future of the presidential fitness test is and whether it's really going to help get American kids to be more active, I definitely appreciate the conversations that it started about PE and physical education and activity and how we encourage that. So Teri Garrett is a PE teacher at Lindbergh High School in Renton, and you are the president-elect of the local chapter of the Society of Health and Physical Educators, Washington State. Thank you, Teri. This has been a real pleasure talking with you.
Thanks again for having me.
Thanks for listening to Soundside. By the way, this show is only possible because listeners support us. If you are able to give right now, check out the show notes for a link to donate. And don't forget, you can listen live on KUOW 94.9 FM Seattle at noon and 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday, or anytime online at KUOW.org.